The Niners are 6-8. They're one of the biggest disappointments in the NFL this season, but everything will be better next season, right? Right? What's up? Welcome to Up Next, a new series I'm doing with up-and-coming 49ers content creators. I'm Grant Cohn. That's Tyler LaRocca, up-and-coming 49ers content creator and a proud member of the Dad Gang. How you doing, Tyler?
I'm doing good. Yeah, just make a little TikTok sometimes, yell at the 49ers, and that's it.
All right, well, let's start here. The title of the show is Will the Niners be Super Bowl contenders next season? We'll end there. But first, we need to really give the Niners their flowers for all the things that they've accomplished this year. What is the best thing the 49ers have done this season?
I think the best thing Niners have done this season is shown how good they can be without Christian McCaffrey, how effective they can be without, when we had Mason and Garendo, showing how good those two can be shows that Kyle has it in him somewhere to not lean on McCaffrey. It's just, will he continue to do it when he has McCaffrey?
Yeah, I think he's always going to be leaning on McCaffrey. I think some of those draft picks were good. I mean, this team has to reload. It's gotten too old. They've had some bad drafts back to back, and all of a sudden they get Renardo Green, Dominic Puni, Malik Mustafa. Those three look like three starters. Yeah. Isaac Garendo looks like a good backup, and Ricky Pearsall, Jacob Cowing to be determined. I'm not writing them off. They look like they haven't gotten any opportunity, so we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, the three main, the Puni, Green, and Malik look amazing. You can't write them off. I actually think Pearsall is a whiff at this point, especially when you think about Ladd McConkey being drafted after him. You have receivers behind him that, in my opinion, you could have done more with. But again, I think if he got some of Debo's targets, you never know what could have happened with him. And then, Garendo kind of reminds me of Mostert a lot. Like, he runs fast in a straight line, and
yeah, he looks solid. I think he looks like he has potential as a receiver. I like what he can do as a receiver. He clearly wasn't 100% healthy in this last game. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we just named two things the Niners did good this year. They beat the Seahawks. Seahawks are in first place.
Beat the Bears and Thomas Brown. Put a smackdown on them. Beat Caleb Williams with Mr. Irrelevant.
They gave Brandon Ayuk a lot of money.
Locked
him up for a long time.
We're cutting Hargrave.
That's a good move.
That's another good one.
I don't want to miss anything.
Figured out you have to move on from Jair Brown. That's another good one, I guess. You figured it out before it was too late.
We figured out that they need to move on from Debo. I think the whole world understands they need to move on from Debo. I don't know if they do.
I don't think Kyle wants to move on from Debo.
They learned some very important things about Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
I mean, what's interesting about him compared to Jimmy is Jimmy came here older. He had that little run at the end of 2017, just like Brock had at the end of 2022, and they had to pay him. Mm-hmm. Thank goodness the Niners didn't have to pay Brock at the end of that, because they would have. And now I think they've gotten so much more evidence that if they wanted to actually make a smart business decision, they don't have to just give him $250 million.
I think another underrated thing with Purdy too is this is his second, because some people are thinking, oh, he might still be hurt with the shoulder. If he is, that's his second throwing arm injury in 3 years. Do we really want to pay someone with an already below average arm, above average accuracy, sure, anticipation time, whatever. He already had a below average arm coming into the league, and he's hurt it now. He's hurt his shoulder in his throwing arm and torn his UCL in his throwing arm. To me, that's not a combination of, let's give this guy, even when people are saying 40 to 50, I'd give him 25 to 30, but
I wouldn't give him anything. I would say, look, man, you got one more year in your contract. Sorry. Play it out. And we're drafting a quarterback, maybe in the first round.
I guess we can, when we get to that point, I would agree with drafting.
But let's say positive. Other good things the Niners did this year. They
Dre Greenlaw is still insane. That's a positive.
Yeah. Yes.
He
That
was
incredible.
everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never seen, I saw someone, I forgot who tweeted it, but someone said they must have had like different surgeon. I think Ryan Clark said it, that Kirk Cousins and Dre Greenlaw must have had different surgeons on their Achilles because Kirk can barely move and Dre Greenlaw's all over the field. And yeah, I couldn't believe, he didn't look like he missed a beat. He looked like, all right, I'm just going to pick up where I left off before I ran out on the field during the Super Bowl.
Absolutely. Also, the Diamondo Lenore season, the extension, it looks like he's going to live up to that. It doesn't seem like he's going to be a guy who all of a sudden is on a rocking chair thinking about the good old days. It seems like he has something to prove going forward. So I like just his whole story.
He's the epitome of 49er football in my head. Hard, like tough, always improving, getting better, willing to learn, takes accountability. That's the one thing I will give Brock is he's very accountable for someone that's had such a rough year. And it's like the antithesis of Kyle. Like he is completely accountable no matter what. Like even last night, just like I failed my team. Yeah, you did. But it's great to hear a quarterback say it because Jimmy didn't really say it much. Kyle never says it. So it's good to have that voice on the team.
It's interesting to see what the defense can do with Greenlaw and Hufanga on the field together.
I wrote Hufanga off too.
Yeah. He's such a good player.
But that kind of poses an interesting question. Is he really that good, or is Jair Brown that bad, where Hufanga's stepping in, or is it a mix of both?
I think with Hufanga, he's good against the run. He gets himself, like, I feel like he breaks up one pass a game. Maybe I'm wrong, but, like, he was right in perfect position for that one. If he didn't have a club on his hand, he probably intercepts it. That's him. He just seems to be in the right place at the right time, and it seems like he makes sure everyone else is in the right place at the right time. And the fact that he's missed most of the last 2 seasons, I feel like he should be probably open to signing a 1-year contract.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good that they remembered how important he was. When they had the number 1 defense in the league a couple of years ago, he was a big part of that. He had an all-pro season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, he looked incredible, and it looked like Sorensen kind of missed it. It looks like we missed both. Greenlaw and Hufanga need to be signed. Like, I think that's another good thing, I guess, we found out before the season end, because who knows what would happen? What if Greenlaw couldn't have come back? What if Hufanga couldn't have come back? And now they have to get paid, and what do you do? Now we saw at least, like, you can build a team because we do have good, like we were talking about Demo, we have a lot of young pieces. Greenlaw, Fanga, Demo, BA, Garendo. So you find out, like, been pretty positive about San Francisco, for what happened. Like, they do have a lot of positivity going into next season. I don't think all hope's lost. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, the retool's coming. Sure, every team has to do it, but we have pieces in place to do it at least.
Okay, before we get into where they need to improve and get into some more constructive criticism, let's just get toxic. What was the worst thing the Niners did this season?
Schneider still having a job. I don't get how he's still the special teams. And then I would say to piggyback off that, like, what happened to Kyle? This is the guy that took Emmanuel Sanders, Raheem Mostert, and Jimmy Garoppolo to a Super Bowl and made them like an insanely efficient offense. But with McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, and Trent Williams, and Brock Purdy, who's at least an upgrade over Jimmy, missing playoffs? Come on.
6 points, 10 points against the Bills, 10 points against the Packers. Yeah. Kyle Shanahan just had an awful year in terms of his offense. Drafting a wide receiver in round 1. I mean, when they needed a center and a guard and a defensive tackle and another defensive tackle, that one wasn't good. They really can't get their first round picks right.
No, I think John, I've said this before. I think John is the worst GM at drafting in the first round in the NFL. People will say BA, but they forget Kinlaw was drafted over Justin Jefferson in that draft. We could have had Justin Jefferson over BA, which is a no-brainer. And I love BA, but like for every, I guess, good pick in the first round, if you BA, like there's an awful one, like, Kinlaw, like I wouldn't say Pearsall's awful, but like I'll cut him some slack. But
the way they handled the Ayuk situation was awful too. I mean, if they wanted to extend him, they should have got that done ASAP. They could have got that done in 2023. He was eligible for one. And you let that drag on and on and on and on and on, and he comes back and he's not in football shape, and it's a big distraction. I mean, at that point, they should have just traded him. Like, you can't do one or the other. Lock him down and have him here, or trade him. And they did the option C.
Oh, that's another best thing they did this season. Demo. They signed him early.
Yeah.
They learned from this awful, awful thing they've been doing for years. And that's the thing that I don't want Purdy signed. I hope to God they do not sign him this year. But if you're going to, man, just do it before the draft so that we can please get him at whatever discount you can, not wait until the season's about to start. And because that was so much. You lost BA, you lost Trent, both to contract negotiations. Last year, we lost Nick for even into the season. And
every year it's someone important.
Yeah. Thank God it wasn't Demo this year, but I'm sure it'll be someone. I'm sure someone will, Greenlaw, Hufanga, someone will be like, all right, we want our money.
I mean, why wouldn't you, right? Because every time a player does it, they get rewarded. Mm-hmm. Literally rewarded.
I mean, if I was Greenlaw, I'd be like, did you see your defense literally prior to me getting there before the Bears game? I mean, you're going to tell me you don't need me on this defense?
There's a longer list of bad things the Niners did this year. I mean, they gave up a fourth quarter lead to the Rams, to the Cardinals, to the Seahawks. They lost. They're 1-4 in their division.
I think Kyle's fourth quarter woes have finally caught up to him. Whereas before, like, do you remember the Saints game? I think it was like 2-3 years ago where George Kittle just went absolutely insane with Jimmy G. What if he couldn't do that? What if he just went down after 2 tackles instead of 4? You know, like, it's a lot of these things where these massive plays have to be made. These miraculous plays seemingly have to be made for us to close out a game in the fourth quarter. And that was even a talking point for Purdy prior to the season. Remember, he said, I want to be like Tom Brady, where I get into the fourth quarter, I want to like put my foot on their neck and end the game.
That's not exactly him. That's what Stafford did.
We just kind of did the opposite this year. Like, it was like a talking point for him and Kyle, and it sounded like they were like, well, let's come to the conclusion that we do the exact opposite of that this year.
Yeah. All right. That's enough of what let's look forward. Let's look forward. What do the Niners need to do to improve this offseason? Where does it start?
Offensive line, quarterback, and defensive line.
Okay. So the bedrock of the team, the foundation.
Yeah. The trenches. And I mean, I feel like with the 49ers, the fan base especially, they're scared to make a move because of what happened with Trey Lance. Mm-hmm. When I genuinely think it was a good move. Did it end badly? Yes. But taking the risk was not a bad idea in my head. I don't think it's a bad idea to try to get a franchise quarterback. Mm-hmm. And I don't want them to be scared of doing that again because they're too scared of another Trey Lance situation happening. Because what if you get a Patrick Mahomes situation that happens, or a Josh Allen, or anything like that? You know, we have a chance to have a middling pick this year. You have pieces that you need to move anyways. Debo, Hargrave, possibly Purdy. You can trade up, get someone like Drew Allar, who I think has a ton of arm talent. He improves year over year. Kyle could teach him to be efficient. It's not as much of a development project because I don't think Kyle knows how to develop a quarterback very well. I think that's another room for improvement, is getting a quarterback coach or a coordinator that knows how to develop a quarterback.
Yeah, I think they need to not look at Brock Purdy as the franchise quarterback and look at him as like the bridge quarterback until he proves otherwise. So he's got 1 year left on his contract.
Yeah.
Spend your first round pick on a quarterback. That's what the Vikings did. The Vikings are having a great year. They gave Sam Darnold a 1 year deal and drafted JJ McCarthy with the 10th pick. The Niners could do something similar. Like, look, we got you on a 1 year deal essentially, and we're drafting a quarterback, and it's still your job. He'll be the backup, but he's essentially going to take your job in a year unless you have another one of those 2023 seasons. And then we'll see. Like, Sam Darnold's having an incredible year right now with the Vikings, and they're still like,
nah.
You know, like, sorry, man, but like, So that's where the Niners have to be. They have to be way more, have higher standards and less eager to just go all in with the quarterback.
I think that's another thing too that we don't talk about enough is Kyle's sort of. A lot of people compare him to Andy Reid, right? And his Niners tenure is Andy Reid's Eagles tenure. But the biggest difference, Rich Madrid's brought this up. The biggest difference between him and Andy Reid is just an eye for a quarterback. Andy Reid at least can find him. Donovan McNabb, Alex Smith, he even improved. Patrick Mahomes. I don't think Kyle knows how to find it. Michael Vick, but I don't think Kyle can find it. I think that's the biggest problem is he doesn't know how to find it.
Well, what's discouraging is that the Niners may have kept the wrong quarterback when it comes to Darnold and Purdy. You had them both on the same team. Darnold's got 28 touchdown passes this year, and Brock has 15. So, I mean, you look at Andy Reid, Donovan McNabb was the second pick in the draft. Vic was the first. Alex Smith was the first. Mahomes was like the 10th. I mean, Kyle's over here trying to make it work with CJ Beathard and Jimmy Garoppolo, the second-round pick, and Brock Purdy, the seventh-round pick. Like, when's he going to get serious? For a second, it seemed like he was trying to get into that seriousness with Darnold and Lance, and then he went right back to his comfort zone. So if he were to bring in another quarterback, who would it be? Would it be Darnold again? Would it be Kirk Cousins? Like, what if he was going to draft a quarterback, would he wait until round 7? I mean, what's he going to do?
I mean, I know what they're going to do. They're probably going to sign Purdy, which is, in my opinion, it's a mistake. Like, I think that's what they're going to do. What I would want them to do is, everyone obviously wants the first round pick to be spent on offensive line. The only thing more important than making sure you have good trenches is making sure you have a franchise quarterback. Because Purdy, we can use him as a bridge. Draft, say again, Drew Allar. He'd be a higher end first round pick. Let Purdy take a beating for a year while you build up your offensive line. Next year, build up the line in the draft. You have a guy that can do whatever you want on the field. You have a guy with the arm to do whatever you want on the field, because Purdy doesn't have the arm. We saw it yesterday, man. He can't be you can't be a franchise quarterback if you can't throw the ball over 20 yards. I'm sorry. You can't. Even 10-yard outs just float.
Yeah.
Like
all of his passes float. His deep throws are not good. The ball placement is not good.
And you have all these people gushing, like his anticipation. Sure, it is A1. He has a top 2 anticipatory throw in the NFL. He just doesn't have the arm to anticipate it. Like when you talk about like even Drew Brees, right? People would say Drew Brees had a weak arm. He had a significantly stronger arm than Purdy.
And I feel like Purdy had a significantly stronger arm than Purdy like a year ago. I feel like he's losing zip as he goes.
Yeah. I think Jimmy had a stronger arm than Purdy. Like,
I agree.
And Jimmy had nothing to put under his passes. But I think it starts there. Like, obviously, yes, you have to draft offensive line in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round. Right. But you first round, you have to take a risk and go for quarterback. In my opinion, if someone like Drew Allar is available, Shadur Sanders, I don't think is going to be available. Cam Ward, I don't think is going to be available. I think Drew Allar is an actual pick that you could not have a pipe dream and think they can get. You could jump up to 9 or 10 and see and make a move for him. Whereas Purdy just can't. He can't get it done. What do we have to do? Everyone keeps saying we'll get him an offensive line. So he needs an all-pro offensive line. He needs an all-pro running back. He needs 2 all-pro receivers with an all-pro tight end and a elite head coach. Anyone could win with that. Give Jimmy that and he could probably win.
Here's the problem, though. How much confidence do you have in Kyle and John to get the first round pick right?
I have negative confidence
that
they
problem.
Can get. But that's why I'm saying you got to bring in someone, either have Brian Greasy be more in these conversations if he knows what he's doing, or hire an offensive coordinator that's proven to at least know quarterbacks. I don't care if he's a great play creator or whatever. Hire someone that knows quarterback. Cliff Kingsbury. Someone, I don't know, anybody. They probably won't hire Cliff, but anyone like that knows what a good quarterback looks like, to give actual input that will be heard and listened to, and let them tell you what direction to go. Because I think once Kyle gets the quarterback, that kind of goes into that where everyone's talking about him going to Chicago. Whoa, but he'll win Super Bowls in Chicago. Yeah, because they already grabbed a quarterback, though. They already grabbed one. So he can't not grab Caleb Williams. He would have grabbed Bo Nix. He would have traded back and grabbed Bo Nix.
Well, I feel like the problem with Kyle is like until he gets a different quarterback coach, he can't really develop a quarterback. Like the reason it
Mhm.
worked with Brock when it worked was because Brock didn't require any development. He was ready to go.
He
And
that
it's hard to. I mean, those guys aren't gonna. You're gonna find them in the first round. Those are usually like juniors that leave early and have. I don't know.
That's why I think your point of keeping Darnold, I don't think it was necessarily the wrong choice because I don't think Kyle could have gotten out of
Yeah,
Darnold what KOC can get out of Darnold.
yeah,
If you think about it, his most success is with Purdy, Jimmy, and even
yeah,
Beathard didn't have a horrible season under Kyle. It's all quarterbacks that are these older. Purdy was an older
yeah,
rookie. These
yeah,
older quarterbacks that are used to just getting the ball out quick, do what you're told, and you're good to
yeah.
go.
It's true. KOC has done such a good job, and who's to say that Sam Darnold would be playing much better than Brock's playing right now in this team? I mean,
I mean, we
Darnold
saw
did
him
play in
against the
that Week
Rams.
18 game against the Rams, and it didn't look good.
It looked ugly. He looked
It
like
looked
Darnold
ugly.
of the Jets.
It really did. And all of a sudden on the Vikings look like a totally different guy. And the fact that they're still not willing to commit to him is interesting. But they really do. I mean, center, left guard, right tackle, left tackle. Like Trent Williams, yes,
Yeah.
he's going through a tragedy, absolutely. But it seems like the ankle is a separate issue. And the fact that
Mhm.
it's not
He's still on the
healing.
cart.
Yeah, the fact that it's not healing the way they wanted to is maybe not surprising. He's older.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, trenches have to be helped. Both sides, defensive line, Hargrave. Again, I can't blame John there. Hargrave was a great look. Like he's awesome. He looked great. It all stems back to getting rid of DeForest Buckner for Eric Armstead. Man, it all comes down to that.
They
If
never
you
they never escaped that original sin.
no, it just Solomon Thomas failing, Forrest Buckner leaving. Imagine how good Nick Bosa could be if he had DeForest, but and Nick Bosa is great, but imagine how much better with DeForest Buckner next to him, or even if you kept Chase Young. Like, yeah, he was lazy in the playoffs, but I mean, Nick's production was great with him. Nick
Yeah.
looked good with him. And another thing on the defensive side is safeties, man. We need to get. I think, yeah, Hufanga and Malik
Mustafa,
are good, but
Jair Brown's got to go.
yeah. So yeah, you got to find
He's having
something.
a terrible year.
I don't think I've ever seen a quarterback take a safety
Safety.
take worse ankles ever in my history of watching NFL.
Yeah,
This dude runs in a straight line no matter where he goes. Like, I'll watch him just whiff on a tackle. I'm like, what is the angle you were taking there? What was the plan?
yeah, absolutely. Also D tackle, like they have nothing there. Hargrave's going to get cut. Collins is going to be 30. Jordan Elliott, okay. They don't need to spend a first round pick on a defensive tackle, but they need a lot of depth there.
Yeah.
They spent so much effort on their skill position players the last few years. Like they can completely ignore a wide receiver in this draft. Although their wide receivers aren't that good. Isn't that crazy? After all they've done at that position?
That's what I was gonna say. Is can they ignore receiver?
Maybe not.
You can, but I mean, again, I think BA coming back will be huge. He creates space for everyone because you can't leave one person on him. But you better be really confident in Pearsall because I think, and Juwan's having a great year this year, sure. But it's not like I don't think he'll ever be like a true 2. I think he's a great 3. I don't think he'll ever be a true wide receiver 2.
I think we saw it in this game. Like the problem with him is he can't beat you vertically. Like they talk about like when you run a deep route, you're trying to stack the cornerback like behind you. He can't do that. That's why he runs like out routes and in routes.
Yeah,
you know,
it's like a tight end.
His route tree is a tight end route tree. So he's a good player, but he's essentially like a big slot receiver or a small tight end.
Yeah, that's he makes insane catches. Like I love Juwan. They definitely should bring him back. You can't afford not to. I think they should try and extend him while he's cheap, but
here's the thing though. Like if he were making $24 million like Debo, we'd be talking about the fact that he had 2 catches on 9 targets in this game on Sunday.
Yeah, we would.
We would.
I imagine if those routes for Debo were ran by Pearsall. Like that's what I always come back to. That slant is caught in 6.
Yep.
The diving catch through his arms that the commentator's like, oh my gosh, Purdy lofted it. it was through Debo's hands still, like the post. It was through his hands.
Yeah.
And Debo's got to go. I think that's the biggest improvement they can make this offseason is getting rid of Debo. I think it'll help Kyle. I think it'll help the offense. You can't force feed Debo. It's just, it won't work. We saw last week against the Bears, we force fed Kittle and Juwan all game like clockwork, and it worked to perfection. Why don't we feed Kittle like Kelsey? I don't get it.
It's been like that for 8 years, and I don't understand it. But Kyle Shanahan, he's very smart, and he has reasons for these things.
It's one of those things where I'm just sitting here like, in my opinion, I think Kittle's better. I think Kittle's better than Kelsey. I think especially right now. Why is he not fed like it? Jimmy was the last person that really like pushed the envelope for Kittle and always force fed him the ball.
No, the guy who really force fed him the ball was Mullins.
Yeah.
That guy. Nick
Mullins
doesn't mess around.
I love Mullins. He's awesome.
Yeah. Nick Mullins. He's backing up Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
I mean, last year he played. He just throws a lot of picks.
He does throw a lot of picks.
A lot.
Anyway, today's episode is brought to you by Via Hemp. That's our sponsor. They're shipping gummies all around the country. So if you need some gummies, go check out Via, VIIA. They're delicious gummies. They got the CBD ones. They got the THC ones, depending on what floats your boat. There's all kind of different ones. I think they're delicious and quite effective. So check out the link in the description. If you feel me, this holiday, and you know, it's a great gift for yourself. Give yourself the gift for Christmas. Give yourself some peace of mind as well. If you're 21 and over, check out the link to Via in the description and use code COHN to receive 15% off. Yeah, that's right. It's on sale. After you make the purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support the show and tell them that Tyler sent you, not me. This holiday season, enhance your everyday with Via. Okay. With that in mind, should the Niners keep Nick Sorensen? He seemed like he was coaching himself out of town all season. And then all of a sudden, he gets Greenlaw back, Hufanga back, and he holds Stafford to 12 points. Not too shabby. What do you think?
I mean, I feel like it's so easy to scapegoat Sorensen, and he's not the problem. Like, I feel like there's so many problems with the 49ers, and Sorensen's not the issue. Sure, you can keep him, you can get rid of him. I personally, the only person I'd really get rid of him for is like Saleh. Get rid of him for Saleh, because I think I like the energy Saleh brings to the defense. Because I think when you're missing Greenlaw, you're missing that heartbeat. And Saleh was also the heartbeat. I think he provided that. So I think you wouldn't have to rely on a player to be the heartbeat. You could actually, have a coach do it, which is what they're supposed to do. Other than that, I mean, I guess you'd look at like a Vrabel I would be okay with. But unless they're like one of those high-end DCs, who would you really get rid of them for,
And doesn't it create a bad precedent that you fire your defensive coordinator every year? Like, who's going to want to take that job? Hey, we've had 3 defensive coordinators in 3 years, and every time our season is a little bit disappointing, you're the scapegoat. But why don't you come join us? A great opportunity for your career.
Yeah. And that's why I say, unless it's like one of those obvious ones, right? Like, because no one would question it if Saleh or Vrabel was like, hey, I want to be your DC. Firing Sorensen for them would be a no-brainer. It wouldn't be like people would be like, oh, I don't want to take that job. It would be like, yeah, I mean, you had to. But yeah, firing Sorensen for God knows who else, to start another Sorensen or God forbid Staley. What's the point? You're just, I don't think Sorensen was horrible when he got, I don't think he was horrible at all, actually, this year. I think he had moments where he wasn't great, but I think Kyle had worse games than Sorensen this year. I'll put it that way.
I agree. I mean, Ryan Hensley made this point on my show a couple of days ago. He was saying, like, how come everyone's so quick to give Kyle Shanahan like the injury excuse or the tragedy excuse? Like, the Niners have gone through a lot. You got to give Kyle some grace. Like, a lot of those issues have been on defense. We just saw it. Once Greenlaw's back, once Hufanga's back, once Bosa's back and Ward is back, it's like, oh yeah, this defense is stacked. And maybe Sorensen isn't terrible. Now, like, he couldn't stop the run at the end, but in retrospect, he only had 2 linebackers and one was limping. So I feel like it'd be tough. Maybe they feel like, well, Saleh's available, and we what are you gonna do? But it's like, it's tough to fire him when in like the biggest game of the year, once again, Kyle got out coached by his defensive coordinator, just like in the Super Bowl. You lose the Super Bowl and you fire Steve Wilks, who may have deserved it based on other stuff that year, but in that particular game, Wilks did good and did better than Kyle. So I don't see how you do it, how you fire Sorensen now. I just feel like doing the same thing as last year.
Yeah, I think as the year went on, Sorensen kind of got his sea legs, so to speak, and was able to put it together. I mean, last week Bosa still wasn't there, Greenlaw still wasn't there. He just got
Did a great
Hufanga
job
back,
against the Bears.
and they're on 4 days rest, 3 days rest, and he did a great job against Stafford, who just had a shootout with Josh Allen in the Bills defense. So he just dropped over 40 on them, and then came and
any DC would be proud of that output.
With Puka and Cup playing, held Cup to 0 receptions. Zero. I don't know if he had a target.
Week 3, they faced the Rams without Puka and Cooper Kupp and gave up 27. I mean, I think that speaks well for Nick Sorensen. I mean, again, Nick Sorensen has been completely shit on all year.
For sure.
By everyone, including me. And I feel like he just did really well yesterday. Yeah. And no one cares because everyone wrote him off already. Like, he deserves some credit for that, I think.
The only bright spot yesterday was Nick Sorensen in the defense. They played great. Yeah. What are they supposed to do? They're supposed to hold the Rams to 0 points with Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, and no defensive line besides Nick Bosa.
Like if you hold a team to 12 points, you're supposed to win that game 99% of the time.
Yeah. What can he do? Yeah, we had some drop picks. Sucks. It was raining. Debo couldn't catch a ball. Why should our corners? Like, he had as many drops as the DBs. So my big thing with that is just firing him makes no sense to me. Makes 0 sense to me. Like, unless Saleh again or Vrabel are there, where it's like, even if they end up doing bad, you can't blame them for, you can't blame them. So
was he bad this year or was he the one with the injury excuses? I don't know. It seems like if he finishes the season strong, which he did in this game and the last game, then you have all the reason to give him one more season. I mean, unless you want to completely throw away the wide 9 and all the things the Niners have been doing for 8 years and say, hey guys, we're going to run the 3-4 and here comes a Vic Fangio to like, maybe they'll do that. I doubt it. As long as they have Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw here and Nick Bosa, I think they're going to try to keep things the same as much as possible. And I don't know.
I don't think Fangio and Kyle would get along either.
No.
I don't see it.
So I asked Kyle Shanahan what gives him hope that next season will be better. And he said a bunch of nothing like, we'll practice and we'll work and we'll battle and we'll do what we always do. That's not – I'd like to hear some specifics. Like, what do you think – like, realistically, what is the upside here for this team? What do you think?
I mean, at the end of the day, injuries, right? Like, we've had a couple of these years now with Kyle where he runs the team into the ground. We have a couple of years where you can't have anyone. You can't go a game without an injury to someone important. And I think that's the hope is like, there's no way it can go as bad as even with the personal issues, like for the team members, there's no way it can go that bad again. I guess there is, but that'd be awful. But I think that's the hope. 1 is that 2, you can retool after John just had an incredible draft. There's some hope. 3, Sorensen improved. 4, Schneider has to get fired. So special teams has got to get better. There's nowhere to go but up for the worst special teams in the NFL. So
I hate the idea that they're going to sell to fans like, hey, hopefully the team's going to stay healthy this year. Like, is Trent Williams going to stay healthy this year? Is Christian McCaffrey going to stay healthy this year? Is Brandon Ayuk going to be what he was? I mean, he'll come back at some point, I would imagine, but he'll have no training camp. So what's he going to look like? I'd like to think that there's going to be some like major roster reshuffling, that like they have so many mercenaries on this team, guys who aren't really embedded in the culture of the team.
Yeah.
And it's like Devondre Campbell was like the worst example of that. Like, you should have guys like Kittle who are old but are like Niners for life, or
Yeah.
young guys. Like
Yeah.
none of these 30-year-old, I'm here for a year, maybe
Yeah.
win the Super Bowl, and if things go south, I'm freaking out of here. You don't want that.
Yeah. I agree. I think that's another problem. Is this I kind of feel like this offseason went up to a rough start because Niners just seemed really entitled this offseason, right? Like, oh, we went through 3 quarterbacks, made an NFC championship game. Then the year after, when we finally had a starter, we made a Super Bowl. And so it seemed like they're kind of just like chilling going into this year. Like, I mean, we're going to make it back. Look at us.
Yeah.
Look how good
Yeah,
we
we
are.
always make it back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we don't need a Brandon Ayuk to be signed immediately. We don't need Trent to be signed immediately. We can have all this drama and it doesn't matter because
Yeah.
we're just going to be back.
Yeah.
And I feel like
Yeah.
that's another thing that could give you hope is we got punched in the mouth this year. Like
now they know, like, no, you need all your players there for training camp. You do team building in training camp. You don't get to do that at a pizza parlor at a bowling alley in October. Like, you actually have to go through the trenches together in August, which they didn't do last year. They kind of try to like skip the process, cheat the process, and they got smacked down.
Yeah.
So I'd like to think that they learned, but then again, with the season on the line, Kyle Shanahan's going to Deebo Samuel left and right, and it's like, man, that's the same mistake you've been making in every loss since the Super Bowl in February. Like, you're not giving me much confidence that you're ever going to change.
Yeah. Isn't it weird how outside of last year, Kyle was better with like Jimmy, Emmanuel Sanders, and Mostert than he's been with like more talent? It seems like the more talent he gets, the less creative he gets. Like, I don't know why. It's so weird to me because if you ran the Jimmy Garoppolo offense with Purdy's an improvement.
Let me think about it this way, right? Like, any coach who is known for their scheme, offense or defense, being like cutting edge, who's the coach whose scheme has been cutting edge the longest?
Probably.
Like, I can't think of a guy whose offense or defense was way ahead of the league for 10 years.
Yeah.
Maybe for 4 or 5, maybe. But essentially, people catch up to you because everyone's looking at you. You're dominating the league, and people are really smart. So, I mean,
and when you have a target on your back,
yeah. So
most
it
people
looks
are
like
running.
maybe what you're doing isn't as effective and fresh as it was 4 or 5 years ago. Defenses have seen it. A lot of these teams run versions of what you're doing, and now you don't necessarily have a schematic advantage on other teams. You had a personnel advantage on other teams. You had Christian McCaffrey. Oh my God. You had the best player in the freaking league. And now that he's gone, it's like, oh yeah, this is what this team looked like before you traded for Christian.
Yeah. I agree. Like, and you have to remember all the successful teams are not all of them, but you get what I mean. Most of the successful offenses in the league run the Shanahan system. Packers, the Dolphins, the Rams, the Niners. The only one that doesn't has the best quarterback probably of all time by the end of his career. So sure, you don't have to run the Shanahan system. Just have Patrick Mahomes or just have Josh Allen. Like,
what's scary to me is that the Shanahan system is like as good as its running back. Like, it's like, even when his dad had John Elway, it was about Terrell Davis. And like when Kyle had Christian McCaffrey from 2022 to 2023, they were 26-7 in the Christian McCaffrey games. It's like they won 80% of the time. Unless he's going to come back and be that guy again, I'm sort of I don't have that. I don't necessarily have I don't see it. To me, this is a team that like really wants to find out. Like, you haven't figured it out yet. You're not good. You need to change something. If you want to run it back next year and really find out, you'll find out again. You're not that freaking good. Unless, of course, Christian McCaffrey can be the offensive player of the year again. I don't think he can at 29.
I don't think he can. And I think last year was Deebo's final gas in the tank. I think he ran out. Like, this year you saw this has been the worst year of his career, in my opinion. Like,
yes,
I've never seen him play as bad as last night, especially. And
the fact that he changed his number beforehand is actually fitting. It's like, we'll always remember the one era for Deebo Samuel wasn't it. Like, you got it. If you want to, like, a nostalgic poster to put on your wall for the Deebo, it's 19. Got to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, that's my biggest problem is why are we still forcing the ball? Like, he can be a good distraction. Like, some defenses may still respect him and may still think like, hey, Deebo's going to burn us here. And then you can use that and get space. And I think that's what Brandon Ayuk helped a lot with last year, was giving Debo space that he didn't have to try and, because they had to play a lot of zone around BA, because you couldn't, besides the Chiefs, people couldn't really run man on him, or he burned you. So you had to run zone.
Some guy. I mean, you'd have to have a really good corner to shut him down.
Yeah.
And so unlike Juwan Jennings, he could beat you deep, even though he wasn't the fastest receiver in the league. Now you're paying all that money and you wonder if he'll still have those quicks and if he'll still be that fast, but find out in 7-8 months.
I think that's like the biggest thing for next year, is just, you got to hope Christian McCaffrey is even 75% of what he was. And B, you got to hope Debo's gone. Debo, if he's on the team, Kyle will force feed him. He can't help himself. It's like his best friend. And he can't help himself.
Also, they have to improve the quarterback room. It can't just be Purdy and a bunch of stiffs.
Brandon Allen, oh my God.
Purdy with with a huge fat signing bonus and a bunch of nobodies. Like, no, man, there needs to be some competition. There needs to be some consequences for this awful season. And the consequence is no extension for you, buddy. We're not rewarding 6-8, or this could end up be 6-11. We'll see what this ends up being, but you don't get to miss the playoffs, be middle of the road in every statistic, and walk away as the highest paid player in the league. Absolutely not. Now you can become the highest paid player next year if you ball out like Sam Darnold is right now, but you got to do that. You had the opportunity this year and you blew it.
Here's also my thing. If the Niners do, right, say we trade him or just cut him, right? How many teams you genuinely think are going to pay him $50+ million a year?
Zero.
I can't. Yeah, exactly. So why would the Niners? Nobody would.
Like the value in him is like, if you're running Kyle's system with Purdy, but well, he knows it. He's a good fit. I've seen him run it. But if you're not running Kyle's system, why would you want Brock?
Plus, you found that out about Jimmy, right? Everyone was like, all these rumors were insane. Like, Jimmy's going to get a massive deal. The Raiders cut him like within a year.
Yep.
Now he's a third stringer behind.
And
Stetson
whether that's
Bennett.
fair or not, the Jimmy Garoppolo experience in Las Vegas is going to hurt Brock Purdy.
It should.
Because everyone knows what happened to Jimmy. And people wonder if the same thing would happen to Brock. I wonder.
I think it would.
It could be happening right now.
Yeah. I mean, and again, a lot of people say like injuries on offense. Sure. Missing Trent sucks. But like, the dude's not done what he's done last year. Like, he'll have Jordan Mason underneath, Isaac Guerrero underneath, waving. Even the sail to Debo where he was a curl, he was open for like 5 minutes, it seemed like, and then he still overthrew it. And it's just like, why? Like, it seems like he's trying to prove he needs a contract, and in doing that, he is proving why we should not give him a contract.
I completely agree with that. Well put. And it's interesting. You think of him as being like this, shucks, doesn't play for the money, and a throwback. Like, nah, man, he's a human, and he had an opportunity to get $60 million a year, which he probably never thought was ever in the cards for him. And I think it added more pressure than when he first got in the league. The only thing he was trying to prove is that he belonged, which he did a good job of proving. Now he's trying to prove that he's the best. Like, you can't. Because you're not.
Last year, he was just trying to prove that he was an improvement on Trey Lance. You shouldn't take Trey Lance.
And that he could play coming off that injury.
Yeah. And you know what's actually really funny about Purdy, right? Is, do you remember, I forget if it was Baker Mayfield's second year, when he did all of those commercials in the offseason, how everyone just reamed him for it because of his attitude, right? Because he always had a chip on his shoulder, yada, yada. But Brock Purdy did 1,000 commercials this offseason.
Great point.
And
it's not that Bakers were like,
get his bag,
corny.
get your bag.
It was like Bakers were kind of corny. He was trying to be funny, right? It was like he lived at the stadium in Cleveland and he lost his keys, and it's like, God, this isn't cute. But with Brock, it's like, okay, but it is kind of cute stuff, right? It's not, he's not trying to be funny, but it's like he's in a tractor, he's in a cornfield. It's like, yeah, okay.
Like, when Baker did it, that's distracting. He wasn't working on it. He was just busy making money. But with Purdy, it's like, well, yeah, he needs to get his bag. He needs to be doing this. Like, the bag is $60 million a year if you played well this year. The bag was if you went to the Super Bowl this year. I mean, even with all the injuries, if he just went to the playoffs and had a semi-similar year to last year, you'd be like, okay, yeah, you should probably pay him some good money.
You know what can't happen? You can't have worse numbers than Sam Darnold. I'm sorry. You can't.
Yeah.
You can't. And it's like not even close.
No, it isn't. And a lot of the defense people will use, I could already hear the comments is, well, he has Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. Well, we have George Kittle, Debo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, Trent Williams, and Kyle Shanahan. So you could give excuses. And that's the thing with the Niners that's so funny in the Purdy discourse that's so funny is when you're talking about why Purdy should be good, it's, wow, the Niners are the best offense in the world. But then when it's like, when you're pro Purdy, it's Purdy's doing everything. It's what is it? Are we the greatest offense? Do we have some of the best players in the world? Or
no one's getting open. There's no separation. They can't run the ball. They're slow. Their offensive line is trash. It's like, I don't know, man. Like he had Kittle open deep, underthrew him. He had Pierce all open deep, threw it behind him. And he didn't have Juwan Jennings open deep, and he forced it to him and got picked in the red zone, down 3 in the fourth quarter.
Like
that to me,
he threw it into 5 coverage.
We always knew he didn't have arm talent, but we thought he was like a mature decision maker. That was a Jimmy G decision.
He's trying to play for the contract and he's playing himself out of it. It's so weird because the scrambling he's done this year, sure. I would say more times than not, the scrambling has been helpful, but it's like these off-platform, one-arm running crossbody throws that just like float for 5 minutes in the air. Like you're playing 3 flags up as a kid. And it's like, it only went 15, 20 yards. And you're like, we're going to pay
a bad
him
for him in this game. It kind of reminded me of what Jimmy started spinning around in the pocket. And it was like,
oh yeah. Happy feet.
Brock did like the jump throw in the pocket and then got sacked. Doesn't he look like he looks small in those moments.
Well, did you notice 2 plays before that he completed it? So he got his confidence. He's like,
I know.
Yeah. I'm the man.
Like, oh my God, dude, you're going to fumble. Don't do that. The jump throw in the pocket before he gets sacked. I don't like that.
The 3. Yeah. I didn't like that whole 360, but this was the thing at Iowa State, right? Like after Purdy went off, like I watched some, I'm not going to claim I was like, oh yeah, I studied his film at Iowa State. I watched a lot of his film at Iowa State and you saw it at Iowa State. He would get confident. It wasn't like Jimmy. Like Jimmy would start playing bad and then panic and happy feet into 6 interceptions in a row. Purdy's the opposite. He'll play well, get his swagger, and then just start like doing things where like, bro, what are you thinking?
Who do you think you are?
Yeah. Like we're driving Juwan in 5-man coverage. I'm just throwing it up. It's like, what just happened?
Well, here's the thing. He's doing that more and more, and I feel like he's making worse and worse decisions. And since that Ravens game, which was almost a year ago,
was bad.
He's 9-9 since that game, all things considered, with a quarterback rating of 91. If Jimmy ever had a stretch with the Niners, I don't think he ever did, where he was 9-9 with that kind of a quarterback rating, people will be up in arms about this.
I wanted him gone when he was playing well.
And I think this is what people don't get. Like with Purdy, he's gotten so much grace. People have been so nice to him. But if he had gotten paid, let's say he got paid, what's the money thing, man? People aren't nice to people who are rich. They're just not. You're not. It's just the way it is. So if he had gotten paid after this last season, after that Super Bowl, and he had this past season making $50 million a year, people wouldn't give him excuses. They wouldn't be nice. They'd be saying mean things, just like they did for Jimmy. And that's why another reason why he can't handle the weight. He can't handle the weight and the pressure of that.
It comes down to it. Like, is he a good dude? Yeah. Amazing. Is he a good quarterback? I would say that's his ceiling is good. I would say he's a good quarterback. Do you want to pay a good quarterback? Would we pay Darnold $60 million a year? No. And he is going off right now. He was at the first half of the year. He was like, people were like, oh my gosh, Sam Darnold MVP. Would you pay Derek Carr $50 million a year?
And if the Vikings, who aren't necessarily a premier franchise, are getting this type of production out of Sam Darnold and they're not freaking out and they're like, okay, that's cool, but we understand that we're a big reason for his success. And instead of just giving him all this money, we might want to see if we can have success with another player for a little bit cheaper. We do have JJ McCarthy. Who's to say JJ can't do the same stuff? Like, I love that approach from the Vikings. Like, okay, we're in a great situation. Let's not overreact.
They didn't even freak out last year when they lost
Niners. If they had Sam Darnold with 28 touchdowns and 10 picks, they'd give him a lifetime contract.
That's my worry about Purdy, is we did it with Jimmy, and the Niners have like this I don't even know what to call it because it's not recency bias. It's like best moment bias. Like, well, you remember 2023 when Christian McCaffrey was like one of the best running backs of all
Pretty
time?
nice.
Yeah, it's like Brock
Pretty
Purdy
nice.
played so well. It's like,
Yeah.
sure, but in my
I mean,
opinion,
Daniel Jones had a good year too, man. Like, well, look at him now.
it's one of those things where it's like, who I could see the Niners even drafting is like some 7th rounder, like, or like someone like a Dylan Gabriel in like the 3rd round, another short, quick pass, older senior. And you're just like, please fix the problem. The problem is not you need a different quarterback that can't throw it over 30 yards. The problem is you need to find talent. Trey Lance was a good find, I guess. Whether you hate him or like him, you got to respect the cojones it took to jump to try to find a franchise guy. We got to do that again. We have to. Purdy isn't it. We saw it last night. We saw it in Buffalo. So we can't play in the rain, can't play in the snow. We can't play in 70 and sunny every single game.
He fumbled in Minnesota because it was 80 and humid. True story.
Exactly. Like, what's a franchise? How does that look like a franchise quarterback? He played great last year. Yes, I'm not taking away with him. He had great stats.
He was so bad last night. He was
horrible.
So bad. And like Lombardi's trying to act like it's just one bad game.
Oh,
man, the whole season was on the line. And he wasn't just like, if he was mediocre, that wouldn't have been good enough. But he was flat out awful, just terrible. Like Lombardi was making fun of Caleb Williams last week, man. That team is dead, had nothing to play for. Brock Purdy was on a good team with something to play for and was just as bad.
Like, and did Purdy, like Purdy threw 330 yards. It looked great, right? It looked great from the box score. And it looked pretty good from the game. He had a couple, opportunities where he could have really like put his foot down on it and stamped it. But dude, last night, that's where you need that's where your franchise quarterback shows up. In the rain, in the snow, in the mud, in the humidity, in bad situation, when players are injured. I don't care what you can do against the Chicago Bears when everyone's back and everyone's happy. And Kyle's in Kyle coached the best game I think I've seen him coach in 2 years against the Bears.
He did. Well, he was trying to get that job, as you can see. Clear.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
how could he be that good against the Bears and that bad against the Rams 4 days later?
McVay has a chokehold on his brain.
Apparently.
I don't get it. I think everyone's caught up to Kyle, besides the brand new head coach in DC over in Chicago. If you notice, like, that was it. That was why. What do you mean? They just fired Eberflus. Their DC's first time being a DC basically was there under their new head coach with a rookie Caleb Williams who just Sorensen's smart. He saw what everyone's seen. Caleb kind of struggles against the blitz like most rookies. Just send the house, overwhelm him, give Brock Purdy 48 chances, and he'll throw for 300 yards.
James says, when are you looking at draft prospects? I'm going to start looking at Drew Allar like today.
Drew Allar looks incredible.
That's your homework assignment. Drew Allar, Penn State.
God, he looks good. Yeah, I think he's young.
Sean says Purdy's replacement is on the team. Mordecai should get a look. Kyle can rinse and repeat and draft a guy in the next 2 years. I would rather watch Tanner Mordecai start the next 3 games than Brock.
I agree. I would, but I would not put my faith in Tanner Mordecai personally.
No, I wouldn't either. But we've seen enough from Brock. The season's over. You failed. I want to see Tanner.
But I kind of like what your dad said. We're the 49ers. You don't roll over. You don't pack it in.
Hey, how do we know that Tanner doesn't give him a better shot to win than Noodle Arm Magoo over here?
And if his labrum really is torn still, because that's the excuse.
If his labrum is torn, then I want to preemptively apologize for calling him Noodle Arm Magoo. That was just rude. But if it's not,
everyone says it is. They're like, well, that's the excuse. Like, he's still dealing with a shoulder injury. Okay, then let him pack it in.
I asked. They said he's not. Okay. I've asked every different which way. I said, are they giving him injections? They said no. Anyway, that's going to do it for us today. Tyler, you killed it. Great stuff. Tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, go ahead and look me up on Twitter. It's my first and last name, Tyler C. LaRocca. And then, it has links to my TikTok, YouTube, and all that stuff.
Well, he's up next. Thanks for watching, everyone. Let's see if the 49ers can go a day without creating some drama. It's been a great season, Tyler. Great stuff.
Great stuff.